Hi, it's good to see everyone again for segment 5 of our CMAPs. Uh, this week, not unusual for me to say, but I'm taking a little bit of an untraditional kind of take on the CDA. And so it's actually from a book. Um, and I've shown this before, Art as a Way of Talking for Emergent Bilingual Youth. And what's even more a little bit unconventional about this is that it's not one of the articles in the book, but actually the introduction. The reason why I picked it was because it is set up like a traditional CDA and addresses everything. And what I found really intriguing and provoking was how it was introduced with the editors giving their positionality and how that will lead into the discussions and why they chose the chapters and how it all kind of like flows and integrates together. And because of that, I was inspired to create my own life map or life trajectory. And so I'm going to display it here now. As you can see on my map, I've moved nearly every year of my life since I was 18 years old. I was born in Evanston, Illinois, but grew up in Crystal Lake, Illinois. And then kind of moved around every year since then. And I am 40 this year. So there are 40 years to my map. It is from 1982 to 2022. Um, so I did not include different like flight routes or travel destinations within my life map. I chose to just focus on the places where I lived. And my definition of my definition of living in each location is a place where I have taken my personal belongings, all of them, and went to a place where I had a job and was really situated within that place. And so there are 15 of them on my list. Something that I find kind of quite fascinating is that through going, you know, bypassing and finding all of these routes and seeing, almost like Rome, all roads lead to Rome. I was fascinated to find that I constantly kind of go back to Santa Fe. So I was joking around with some friends that it shouldn't be called my life map. It should be called Finding My Way Back to Santa Fe. But I think it was a fun and unique process to explore my footpath and my journey and how it influences my positionality within reading and understanding, comprehending, and how I am as an educator and learner as well. The book is called Art as a Way of Talking with Emergent Bilingual Youth. But the chapter is called Introduction Bienvenidos. So we're asked to address a specific question for this week, and the question is, how is language being critically analyzed, specifically within Art as a Way of Knowing, or Art as a Way of Talking for emergent bilingual youth? There are 3 topics that I felt were pertinent and relevant to this whole discussion. The first question is, what is multilingualism, and what does that look like in the classroom? Throughout this chapter, certain things were recognized. The first was knowing who our emergent bilingual students are and honoring their voices is essential to the development of their critical identities. This is kind of the biggest statement throughout the entire chapter and really kind of gives a flow and identity to everything that is addressed after it. I quoted or came up with the term outside in, but basically referencing how we should engage pre-existing knowledge encoded in family languages and of which are encouraged, that encourage a deep sense of understanding of concepts and factual knowledge for our emergent bilinguals. Another thing that we should be looking for and doing is acknowledging that the work in schools is inextricably linked to what happens beyond school walls. And so I constantly reference this idea of space, and more specifically outside space. And so that's why I chose to use the term outside in for my previous quote. Teaching materials inclusive of home language and culture enhance proficiency in both the language of home and that of academic English. Okay. And then the last thing, so really notice that I'm talking about community and bringing community and families in, and that being a sense of what multiculturalism, and that is what the classroom environment should look like. So essentially, utilizing families and community as valued sources of cultural knowledge and rooting learning in the histories and traditions of students' home communities embeds new knowledge in the fiber of everyday life while supporting rigorous academic standards. They support each other. So two very fun and interesting facts that were addressed. One is that bilingual children have stronger working memory, the ability to retain and manipulate distinct pieces of information over short periods of time than do monolingual children. That seems quite obvious, but I think it is important to note. Another interesting fact is that bilingual patients at a memory clinic presented dementia symptoms 4 years later on average than their monolingual counterparts, and that bilingualism delays the onset of Alzheimer's disease. I found that absolutely fascinating. You know, I think that's why I helped write and edit my grandfather's life memoirs, because I wanted him to keep on remembering and thinking of all of the different moments and how he acted. And just think how much more the mind and brain is stimulated if it operates in multiple languages. The second topic is how to best facilitate the needs of emergent bilingual youth. All of these kind of fall under the topic of language acquisition. So using multiple forms of literacy challenge traditional forms of schooling that merely spotlight restrictive print and language-based notions of literacy. It's also interesting to note that there are two systems through which we acquire knowledge, or that was brought up. One is the subconscious process of learning language when we are babies. And the other is learned through more formal instruction. And these are things like grammar, academic, our syntax, and vocabulary building, which all coincides with academic knowledge and vocabulary. Language is the heart of teaching and learning because all classrooms and communities are language learning environments for both primary English speakers and emergent bilingual learners. And lastly, as educators, we all have a responsibility to work with students as human beings, regardless of the systems we find ourselves in. The last topic I found pertinent in this whole discussion was, why is arts integration an asset for talking to emergent bilinguals? It is through art that we are able to access and honor authentic stories, lived experiences, and knowledge of diverse peoples. Applying a critical lens through the arts engages students through a wide range of literacies as they make meaning dependent on social, cultural, and historical contexts. The arts promote this kind of cross-language transfer, which gives students agency over their learning process while supporting biliteracy. The arts humanize these spaces and the work of teachers, administrators, community educators, and university professors. The arts humanize these spaces and the work of teachers, administrators, community educators, and university professors can support this framework. The arts invite students to bring their histories and cultures to express their ideas. And lastly, it is proposed that the arts engage students in exploration of ideas, making meaning of challenging concepts and weaving invisible cultural knowledge and making it a visible part of our curriculum and pedagogy. Several key words were brought up through this chapter, and I am not going to go over every single one of them or their definitions, but I am listing them here. The solution really of what the chapter kind of culminates is that creative, culturally responsive, and community-based ways of knowing within formal and informal education are essential for monolingualism to happen. Informal and informal are basically saying inside the classroom and outside the classroom learning. And so there are three components to this. The first one I am saying is pre-existing cultural knowledge. The second thing is code switching and translanguaging. And the third thing is utilizing family and community voices. With this trifecta, you will be able to have a successful environment for your emergent bilingual to grow and exist within a creative arts integrated program. And here is the references of the book. I hope you enjoyed this week's discussion, and I am really looking forward to hearing your comments. Bye.